sing. Let it ring out and we shall overcome. Someday, it gets lonely sometime, but we shall someday.
Welcome, family and friends. We're delighted you have chosen to join us. We are live all over the world: Canada, the United Kingdom, Germany, Poland, South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, France. Call us right now and let us know you're watching us. Give us a call, 773-256-2775. Well, welcome to 2019. We're fighting for you. The push is on. Fighting for you is what we do. Today, we dedicate our broadcast to Barbara Alexander, the wife of the Reverend Cameron Alexander, longtime friend and push supporter, who just was laid to rest this week in Atlanta, Georgia. Today, we are praying for and dedicating this broadcast to the more than 800,000 federal workers who are affected by the government shutdown, day 22. We welcome to Chicago. We welcome to our broadcast Chicago mayoral candidate and friend Paul Vallas. Each week we're given a platform for those who are running for office. We know that voting matters, and we want you to hear from each of the candidates for mayor in the city of Chicago. We expect to hear from you as you vote this year for the mayor of the city of Chicago and vote for aldermanic offices. We express our condolences and our prayers to the families of Larry Langford, a renowned Birmingham, Alabama politician, John Hunter Gray, who worked closely with the Mississippi civil rights leader Medgar Evers, and Larry Cunningham, founding members of the Floaters singing group. Happy birthday to our longtime push volunteer, Anna Roberts. Happy belated birthday to our national spokesperson, Mr. Jonathan Luther Jackson. He's going on up. And we also say happy birthday to our own push videographer, Brewster McCauley. Happy birthday to all of our push family members. We want you to reserve your tickets right now and purchase your tables for the 29th annual Push for Excellence Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship Breakfast. Sketches of a New Legacy at the Hyatt Regency, Chicago. Tickets are $150. Tables are $1,500. The prices are what they are because we provide scholarships to students. Over the last 29 years, we have given more than $10 million in scholarships, so every contribution you make helps us support a student in college. The Freedom Store is open. The phone lines are open. And by popular demand, you can get a jacket like what I'm wearing. You can get a T-shirt. You can get Mrs. Jacqueline Jackson's book, Letters from a Mother to a Son. You can do all of that by purchasing something from the Push store. If you're in the building, you can go upstairs and purchase it today. If you're not, you can go to rainbowpush.org, or you can call us at 773-256-2775 and order your gift today. We're broadcasting live on WVON 1690 iHeartRadio. If you can't tune in on the radio, you can go to Impact Network, or you can go to rainbowpush.org and you can get us on Facebook Live. We're live streaming. We're on YouTube. We're on all of the platforms. You can watch us on your phone. You can watch us on your app, on your tablet, however you want to get us. But we want you to tweet up. At Rev J. Jackson, at RPC Coalition. Follow us on Twitter, at PushExcel. Like us on Facebook, at Reverend Jackson Sr., Rainbow Push Coalition, and PushExcel. We want you to connect with us. And then tomorrow morning, we want you to wake up early in Chicago. It is at 7 a.m. and listen to and hear from experts across the country as Santita Jackson hosts the Keep Hope Alive radio program. Listen on WVON 1690 and check your local affiliates for the rebroadcast of the show. It's keephopealiveradio.com. And don't forget, Santita Jackson has a new Facebook Live program. It's at Pearls in Chicago. If you're in the city, if you're visiting the city, stop by Pearls Monday night at 6:30 p.m. Have dinner with Santita and listen to her program, Let's Talk About It with Santita Jackson. Now, some of you are watching us. You watched us all of 2018. You've not yet joined PUSH. We want you to become a member of the Rainbow PUSH Coalition. All you have to do is go to rainbowpush.org and you can hit donate or join, or you can call us. There's someone in the phone bank waiting to hear from you. And you can call 773-256-2775. Well, I know you're shopping, you're buying books, you're getting school books. Well, if you have an Amazon Smile account, you can give to us while you're shopping. And all you have to do is use your Amazon Smile account, buy whatever you want, and make sure that you designate PUSH Excel as your contributing, as the place for your contribution. We thank you for your support. And now we invite you to listen to our PUSH choir.
Tragedies are commonplace. All kinds of diseases, people are slipping away. Economy's down, people can't get enough pay. But as for me, all I can say is thank you, Lord, for all you've done for me. Folks without homes, people out in the street, and the drug havoc some say they just can't beat. Muggers and robbers, no place seem to be safe, but you've been my protection every step of the way, and I want to say thank you, Lord, for all you've done for me. Hey, yeah, could have been me. Outdoors with no food and no home, all left alone without a friend. Just another number with a tragic end, but he didn't see fit to let none of these things be. 'Cause every day by your power, you keep on keeping me. And I wanna say, hey, yeah, it could have been me. Outdoors with no food and no home, left alone without a friend. Just another number with a tragic end. Hey, didn't see fit to let none of these things be. 'Cause every day by your power, you keep on keeping me. And I wanna say,
Turn your attention to the screens, and we have a special weekend review and a message from our founder and national president, the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Welcome to the hashtag SMF Weekly Update.
Happy birthday to our national spokesman, the Professor, Jonathan Jackson. He provokes, he inspires, he educates, he edifies. Every week, he's ours. Happy Born Day. As the winter storm spread snow from Denver to New York City, another storm brews.
It's cold out here, and the temperature wasn't much warmer in the Situation Room.
800,000 American workers who have been furloughed or are working without pay missed their paychecks for the first time since the shutdown began 3 weeks ago, marking it the longest government shutdown in history.
Open the government now! Open the government!
Reverend Jackson and the Rainbow Push staff joined a rally at Federal Plaza in Chicago, sponsored by the largest union that represents federal workers, the American Federation of Government Employees, to end the partial government shutdown.
Federal workers should not be held hostage to a border wall.
Workers not pay their notes or their rent, not buy groceries, not pay house notes, they're rippling effect to cripple the entire economy. These workers choose jobs over walls.
Workers from border and custom agents to prison guards and agricultural employees joined in protests across the country and chanted, "We want jobs, not walls," spreading the good news.
To see her give the glory to her maker was worth it all to me.
Justice prevails. Centoya Brown was granted clemency from a life sentence in prison after serving 15 years. Floridians with past convictions now have the right to vote, increasing the pool of eligible voters by 1.4 million people. This leaves only 2 states, Kentucky and Iowa, with laws in place that prevent people with felony records from voting. Desmond Meade led the years-long effort and registered for the first time in decades. History maker meets history maker. Reverend Jackson met while on the Hill this week, met with the youngest woman elected to Congress in U.S. history, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Representative Ocasio-Cortez is in line to be appointed to the House Financial Services Committee. And the social media star responded to Reverend Jackson's tweet declaring, "It was an honor to meet with Reverend Jesse Jackson to discuss how we advance the movement for economic and racial justice in the United States." The nation says goodbye to John Jack Lyle, age 98, decorated war hero, fighter pilot, sailor, child musician who served in World War II with the Tuskegee Airmen and who was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal in 2007. He served 26 combat missions from Italy to Austria and southern Germany over the Austrian Alps.
That's too good, no.
And to Mrs. Leslie Brown, age 114, of Cleveland Heights, Ohio, born in 1904, the oldest person in the U.S. who attributed her long life to a diet heavy on sweet potatoes. This week in history, in 1957, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was founded with a mission of ending segregation. Its first president was none other our very own drum major for justice, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Please read and share widely Reverend Jackson's Sun-Times weekly column, "Trump Administration is Intent on Weakening Civil Rights Enforcement." Join the movement. Join Rainbow Push.
Good morning. I wish so much I could be with you today, but this is a very busy season for us. Last weekend we were in Atlanta, Georgia. Reverend Cameron Alexander, preacher of the gospel, a profound preacher, of Antioch North Baptist Church, died and was buried. Tremendous expression of joy in his life and living. Reverend Black was the pastor that eulogized him last Monday. His wife had been sick for some time, Barbara, with dementia, and real sick. Barbara died this week. So Cameron and his wife are both going to glory. We pray for the Antioch North family in Atlanta, Georgia. Secondly, a cause for celebration, Jonathan Jackson. Happy birthday, doctor. My son, my beloved son, who's done so much to help us to speak to interpretations of our time. We thank you and congratulations and happy birthday, Jonathan Luther Jackson. Today I'm in Detroit, Michigan, because we're having a education conference with 1,000 teachers. We're fighting for equity in education across the country. And that's the Automotive Center. Young Americans in the Michigan area must learn how to build cars without drivers. They must learn the skills of the new industry, and we're part of that as an organization. Tonight I'll be in Greenville, South Carolina to go and have a ceremony by my mother's gravesite yet again. I miss her so much. I still call her about once a week. God bless her. I thank God for my mother and my father and my grandmother. And then I'll speak to the King celebration in Greenville, South Carolina tonight. Then tomorrow for 2 days we'll go to Sweden, be the Nobel laureate place where Dr. King received his Nobel Peace Prize and give 2 King lectures. And back in town on Thursday. So keep me in your prayers. The work is difficult and challenging. God bless you. And today I want to express my thanks to the workers who've come today, AFGE, and Jonathan and Jeanette and the whole family. Please keep me in your prayers. God bless you and keep hope alive. See you next week.
Today we are grateful for one of our international guests, Flavia Sequeira.
Scholarship breakfast at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Chicago. We honor and celebrate the birthday and holiday of the nation's friend of mankind, Dr. Martin Luther King, with this year's theme, Sketches of a New Legacy, while showcasing our programmatic efforts of educational excellence and equity, while highlighting the accomplishments of our best and brightest. And this year's honorees including corporate trailblazer Lori George Billingsley, Howard University professor Dr. Ivory Tolson, and president of the statewide Illinois Association of Superintendents and Administrators, Dr. Sheila Harrison Williams. Reserve your tickets and tables. Go to Eventbrite at rainbowpush.org. The 29th annual Push Excel Scholarship Breakfast is the place to be as we continue to push for excellence.
We thank God for the vision of our national president and founder, Reverend Jackson, to form and start Push for Excellence and to launch a national scholarship initiative. Today we celebrate one of our international guests, Flavia Sequeira. He was here all the way from Brazil. Give a round of applause. And we have our regular guests from the Chicago Center, our students who come each and every year on a regular basis to celebrate. Want the students please stand and give them a round of applause. Thank you. We invite all schools to bring your students and teachers and professors, bring your students to Push that they might immerse themselves in social justice and social action, and that they might know some of the critical issues that they face in this day, in their generation. Today, as we have been doing for the last several weeks, thanks to our political director, Ms. Betty Magnus, we are providing an opportunity for those mayoral candidates in Chicago to come and state their case. And today we have with us former CEO of the Chicago Public Schools, Mr. Paul Vallas.
Thank you. Good morning. It's great to be back in Dr. King's workshop. I've been here many a time. Had the privilege of working with Jeanette when I ran the Chicago Public Schools. She headed our Crisis Intervention Fund, which was an extraordinarily challenging experience. I think, Jeanette, over a 6-year period, we paid for over 100 funerals of children who had been victims of violence in their own community. But every day was a privilege to have had the opportunity to work for her. I'm one of how many? 800 candidates running for mayor? Thank you for not running for mayor, by the way, Jeanette. Thank you for not running for mayor. But, you know, I have been a public servant all my life. In fact, I come from a family of public servants. 6 veterans, 4 police officers, 3 teachers, 1 firefighter, and my wife currently is at work at TSA, one of those federal employees who has not been getting their paycheck. But like all those other federal employees, they go every day. But I have always been called upon to rise to certain challenges. In 1995, I took over the Chicago Public Schools when they had $1 billion structural deficit. And I left the school 6 years later with $1 billion in cash, 78 brand new school buildings, 80% in the poorest communities, 17% teacher salary raises, $3.2 billion in construction, in school construction, 58% of which went to Black and Latino businesses, and 58% of the workers in the worker hours played the Black and Latinos. And I didn't do these things because they were the politically correct things to do. I did this because I recognized earlier as budget director and as school superintendent the importance of adopting strategies and policies that would benefit the entire community. And then, you know, after Chicago, I went and I did similar reforms in Philadelphia. And when Katrina destroyed New Orleans, I was called to build the new school system in New Orleans. And when the devastating earthquake killed 250,000 people in Haiti, and then later a follow-up earthquake in Chile, I went to Haiti and in Chile. In fact, I still do work in Haiti. I've been to Haiti over 50 times. For 6 years, I chaired an organization called JPHRO, called now CORE. I was the finance chair, founded by Sean Penn, and for 4 years that organization housed and fed and provided medical attention to 60,000 Haitians. I say these things because Chicago needs a leader who is not part of the corrupt political pay-to-play culture, and someone who has always demonstrated not only the ability and the skills to get the job done, but has demonstrated their independence from that culture. 10 years ago to this day, Rod Blagojevich was indicted. And you know, Rod's been in jail for a long time, and Rod's probably been in jail too long a time. But at the end of the day, the one person in this political establishment who challenged him, and in fact challenged the machine in 2001, was me. You all remember? I ran against a machine. I ran against a political organization. And who did I get the support from? Bill Daley, Tony Preckwinkle, Mendoza, Gary Chico, who I served because he was chairman of the board of the Chicago Public Schools. No, they all endorsed my opponents because the politicians want to preserve this pay-to-play political status quo. And what have we seen from this machine? 80% of the city has seen no growth or is in a state of decline. There's development only occurring in 10 wards. There are areas in this city that are in depression states. They've been in depression states for decades. I grew up in the Rosen-Pullman community, and I grew up near the other Michigan Avenue, the Michigan Avenue of boarded up stores, the Michigan Avenue of burned out lots, the Michigan Avenue that has no restaurants, that has no retail, that has no social services. It is like a desert, and I know deserts. There is more economic activity in Port-au-Prince, Haiti after the earthquake than there is in certain communities like Englewood and Rosen-Pullman that have been degraded and have been underinvested for decades. You know, when Bill Daley runs for mayor and he says he wants to be a neighborhood guy, and when he patronizes people by saying he's going to name the Dan Ryan after President Obama, the Dan Ryan which divided the city, which segregated the city, I ask people, we've had 4 decades. We've had 4 decades of Daley's. We've had 4 decades of this political machine and this political organization. And what do we have to show for it? A tale of 2 cities. Communities with great schools and communities with schools that have been shuttered and that are rotting. Communities where the majority of men are in some phase of the criminal justice system. Communities with lead embedded in their water. Communities that have seen deteriorating infrastructure. So I'm running for the same reason I ran and I challenged the machine in 2001. I challenged Rod Blagojevich because the city needs someone who knows how to run the city, who can be independent of the political pay-to-play culture, and someone who has the commitment and the passion to go into those communities that have been long neglected and to provide those communities with the resources they need to truly be transformed. I invite you all to go to my website. It is Vallis for All Chicago. And I talk about what I'm going to do to balance the budget, to hold the line on taxes, to revitalize our schools, and to invest in the communities that have long been underserved. This is an important election, and you don't get change without voting for change. Don't be distracted by the expensive commercials. Look at what the candidates are offering, and vote for someone who has a proven track record, because if you don't have the record, then the promises you make may not be the promises that you'll be able to keep. Thank you all very much, and God bless.
We thank Paul Vallis. I think he's the 7th candidate that's been here. We have several more to come next week and the week after to share their platform. Each one of them have something unique in terms of their background and experience. You get to choose. We just want to provide the platform for them to share their thoughts and their recommendations and what it is they would do if elected to the office of mayor. Many of you are watching and wondering, why should I buy a ticket to this year's Push Excel breakfast? Well, education is in a state of crisis. Our public schools in Chicago and in many urban cities have been closed. We had 50 closed schools in Chicago, and they moved children to what was supposed to be better learning environments, and yet when we look at K-12 education, our students in public schools, particularly those in African-American communities, are not giving our students a broad-based curriculum. Our students are not getting art, music. They are not getting STEM education. Our students are not getting the ability to learn oratory and debate like students in more affluent school districts. There are inequities in the system. More than 60+ years after Brown versus the Board of Education, our schools are still segregated in terms of the allocation of resources, the allocation of qualified teachers, the allocation of STEM materials. And so here at Push Excel in Chicago, we have a laboratory for education, but it's not enough. We're not reaching the millions of students across this country who should be getting a high-quality elementary school and high school public education. Parents are trying to choose charter schools over public schools. Many parents are struggling to put their children in private schools because they know the public schools closest to the homes of their children are not providing them with a competitive education. And then we have students who do graduate and finally decide to go to college. They can't afford the tuition, can't afford the room and board. $3 trillion in student loan debt for students who have pushed themselves into college and taken out loans that they can't afford to pay back because they have no jobs. And so why do you come to the breakfast? Because we want to challenge you, we want to inspire you, and we want to celebrate a company like Coca-Cola that does invest in education. We want to challenge you to see young men like our honoree from Howard University, who's a great writer and publisher of the Negro Digest at Howard. We want you to see students who are doing ballet called Hiplet, hip-hop ballet. We want to showcase what happens when students learn music and the performing arts. We want you to see and hear from our oratorical students as we trace the legacy of 400 years on this country. I can't say much more, but I want you to be at the breakfast. Get your ticket, get your table, have your family send you to the breakfast, because you're investing in education, educational policy, and you're investing in scholarships, you're investing in the Push for Excellence program. Join us January 21st. Tables are going fast. Get your ticket right now. You can pick where you want to sit. You can pick your table online. Go to rainbowpush.org. Don't call me. Tell me I want you to hold my table. I'm not holding anything. I'm selling out. Jonathan has already got his. Everybody, we're selling. We have attorney Crystal Stokes representing. She's a national representative for AFGE, the government workers. She's going to give us a brief update on the government shutdown, and we're moving towards our national spokesperson who will keynote today.
Good morning. I'd like to first thank Reverend Jackson and the Rainbow Push staff for inviting me here on behalf of my boss, MVP James, and our national president, J. David Cox. I also would like to thank them for coming out this past Thursday and supporting us at the rally at Federal Plaza. Our organization, the American Federation of Government Employees, is the largest federal union representing federal employees, and we are representing most agencies that have been affected by this shutdown. And you probably have seen the news and heard the stories of many employees who are now not being paid. But I wanted to talk to you this morning about the impact of the shutdown beyond the federal employee. And that impact is going to affect the larger community, including you. Many of the employees spoke about how they're not able to pay their bills, how they're selling their personal items to make ends meet. As I was driving over this morning listening to NPR, I heard one woman talk about how she had adopted 2 children and thought she was bringing them from a place where they weren't getting what they need, and now she's no longer able to provide them what they need. This is the impact that a 21-day shutdown that is totally unnecessary and actually is quite evil on the part of this administration that is using federal workers' pay, holding it hostage to fund a border wall that we don't need. But the shutdown doesn't just affect them, it affects us as well. Those workers, some of those workers are the people that inspect our food, so we eat every day. Some of those workers are the people that ensure that we have clean and safe water to drink, and not only drink, to use in other areas of our lives. We bathe, we wash our clothes. Remember the Flint, Michigan crisis? Okay, so the EPA is instrumental in providing the services that ensure that we have quality water. We have our essential workers, like Mr. Vallis was saying, his wife is a TSA employee. They have to go to work or they're going to lose their job. They have to ensure that we are able to have confidence that when we get on a plane that we are safe. And the air traffic controllers also, they have to go to work. They don't have a choice. They can't say, well, you're not going to pay me, I'm not going to go. So they deserve our support. And we can come out just like Reverend Wilson and Reverend Jackson did on Thursday and show that support by showing up to these rallies. Believe it or not, it matters and it works. We encourage you to tweet at White House so that the administration can hear from you. It doesn't just have to be federal employees. We ask whenever we have a mobilization action that everybody get involved, workers, their families, their friends, because the community at large is affected. When people are not getting paid, they're not spending money. That affects our economy. So we should not have to, not only should they not have to be held hostage, the public shouldn't have to worry about whether or not they're going to be able to get SNAP benefits. Those are affected. They're under USDA. Or Section 8 housing. People on that list, all of that is stopped right now during the shutdown. And many other vital services that federal employees provide. So I want to encourage you, if you have the time, we'll be holding rallies every Thursday from now until the shutdown ends. So hopefully I won't see you Thursday. But in the event that the shutdown is still in effect, we ask that you come out and join us and show your support for federal employees. Thank you, and thank you for inviting us.
And if the shutdown does not end in Chicago, we will be at Federal Plaza at noon, and all across the country they will continue the demonstrations as Reverend Jackson has called for them. And then next Saturday, even if the shutdown is over, we are planning to provide food baskets for those workers who have been inconvenienced during this shutdown. It's something when you expect a paycheck on yesterday and you didn't get it, groceries still have to be purchased, and so we're going to provide groceries to as many workers that come next Saturday, up to 300. And now we have a young lady who is the best representative of Push for Excellence, Miss Christiana Haley Gray. She's a third grader from Calvin Christian School in South Holland. She's going to give her oratorical presentation, and then the next speaking voice you will hear after the musical selection will be our national spokesperson, Mr. Jonathan Luther Jackson, who's celebrating as an old man today.
Good morning, Operation Push, friends and family. My name is Christiana Haley Gray, and I would like to thank Reverend Dr. Jesse Jackson for his commitment and service to civil rights. I will be reciting for you All My Life by Langston Hughes. I traveled the big seas, working on ships to pay my fee. Countries and continents welcome me. In Paris, Africa, Russia, China, I go around the world acting like a minor. Not the kind my father wants me to be. In Mexico with an engineering degree. But a minor searching for riches. From people of all races, discovering other voices and other places, going around the world, claiming poets from other nations, translating sonnets and stories into something I can dig. Yeah, going around the world digging life is my gig. When I'm not overseas, I'm in Harlem, with other writers, artists, musicians, mapping out a world of laughter and strife, celebrating the beauty of Black life. Thank you.
Amen. Come on, celebrate. Celebrate, celebrate. We want to celebrate Professor Jackson. Come on, continue to remain standing. Continue to remain standing. We celebrate a birthday together. If I never live another day, if I never see a smiling face, if I never breathe another breath, take another step, I want to say thank you. If I never hear what's to be heard, if I never speak another word, if I never take another bite, see another sign, I want to say thank you. Come on, help me say thank you, Lord. Thank you for all that you've done thus far. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for reading my vegetable. Food on my table. I know you're able. Yeah, I want to say thank you. Whoa, if I never take another walk, if I never had another talk, if I never taste another bite, see another sign, I want to say thank you. If I never scale a China wall, take a plane and see the Taj Mahal, if I never find that special friend, search the world back again, I still say thank you. If you know it, come on, help me say thank you, Lord. Thank you for all that you've done thus far. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for food on my table. I know you're able. I know you're able. I want to say thank you. Can I say that one more time? If I never had another talk, if I never took another walk, if I never taste another bite, saw another other side, I still said thank you. If I never scale a China wall, take a plane and see the Taj Mahal. If I never find that special friend, search the world back again, I still say thank you. Come on, help me say thank you, Lord.
Thank you, come on, Rainbow. Thank you, done thus far.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you for being a that you are.
Been food on my table.
Thank you for food on my
I know you're able.
I know.
Tell the Lord.
I want to say thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
I'd like to, I got the birthday, but I want to say happy birthday to my good friend, Reverend Barnes. It's also his birthday this week, and very special birthday to all of you in television and radio land, and more importantly, my kindred brothers in spirit, those that have come out today, those that have tuned in today, those that have freedom fighting on their mind. God bless you, and I thank you so much. As I stand here today in my father, Reverend Jesse Jackson's rightful place, in the words of Reverend Barnes, I've got so much to be thankful for. I thank God today for this new year. I thank God for another birthday. I thank God for 53 years with my mother, my father, having known my grandparents, having known my great uncle, my great grandmother. I have so much to be thankful for. When I just saw this young lady in the oratorical contest, Miss Young Christiana Hayes Gray, bless her heart, and I can't help but to think about when African Americans first came to this country, and the first person to be manumitted from slavery, having gained their independence, their freedom, was the 8-year-old girl, Phyllis Wheatley. So we thank God for Judge Hill that takes the time to teach our children the poetry, our history, and take them around the world, unbridle their tongue. In these remaining words, I'd like to talk about the government shutdown. What exactly is happening in the government shutdown? To be clear, it's a partial government shutdown. There are 15 government agencies. This is primarily affecting 9 of those major departments. We're now into day 22 of our government shutdown. In our recent history, we've seen government shut down under the Carter administration for 8 days, under the Ford for 10, under Obama for 16, under the Clinton for 21 days. Now we have gotten into the new era of the 22-day shutdown. I went to undergrad at North Carolina A&T State University. Many of my classmates were in the military. Many other classmates went to work in civil service jobs, and now I'm beginning to hear their anguish and their pain as they took off some parts of December. They were scheduled for leave, and now they're missing their first paychecks. Couples, I encourage you to stay together, stay strong. Sometimes you want to make sure everybody's getting up and getting out of the house. Well, Reverend Patterson, they're going to get to know each other real good, ain't they? So stay strong. It was just the other day, I asked my wife after my birthday how things going. She says, oh, they're going fine. She says, but you know, you used to travel a lot. I said, oh yeah, I got to start traveling some more. Okay. So I've got some friends whose husbands and wives know they want to get back to work. And if the president had any good sense, they would go to work for free if you just give them the gas money. You shouldn't laugh too loud unless you're telling on yourself. So you've got the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, Health and Human Services, Veterans Affairs, Education and Labor. They've not been affected by this government shutdown. Their budget was passed. 75% of the government's budget has been passed through September. This is 25% of the government's budget. This is directly affecting 800,000 people. But listen to the departments that are being affected. The Department of Agriculture. That's where our inspectors and other good people work. The Department of Commerce, things that can initiate our trade abroad as well as at home. The Department of the Interior, where we can see our safety from our water and our wildlife and other good things. Our Department of Transportation. Transportation is the vital link between welfare and work. How do you plan out the mass transit grid? Reverend Martin Luther King just did not stand to make sure we can sit anywhere on the bus. That's very small-minded. No. Define it and understand it for yourself. Reverend Martin Luther King had an insurrection. He had the final straw on helping to break the slaveocracy. When you understand what happens in mass transit, you've heard before, you are what you eat. More important than that, you are where you live. If you do not have food and groceries in your neighborhood and access to clean produce, if you do not have access to transit to get to health care facility, if you do not have access to transit to get to reading and writing and other services for a child, if you do not have access to transit, you are in fact stuck in a ghetto. Someone in a car on a freeway can get closer to downtown than you can in the city where the train line and the buses have been cut. He was taking on a mass transit system. Secretary of the Treasury is now shut down. Homeland Security is now shut down. Our Secretary of State, where half of our embassies do not have an appointed ambassador. Now we're telling the world what we're 5% of, and we're held up as the beacon of hope and freedom. We do not have ambassadors to do the necessary work of diplomacy. Sometimes it's a matter of understanding. For those of you that have ever shot pool, there's a way you can tell the 6 ball from the 9 ball. Where's the line? It's also a function of, are you sitting on the upside or the downside of it? I remember when I was teaching at Chicago State, I would ask my students as we got into business law and started talking about partnerships. I said, now, you might not have paid any attention to anything else I said, but this is the most important part of the chapter in business. I said, listen up. In a divorce, your wife can get half. But if you get your partnership rules wrong, your partner can take it all. I need your full attention. What is he talking about? I would tell my students, let's have dinner tonight, theoretically speaking. Let's push it back from 7 p.m. What time is that? They said, why don't you be more specific? We've engaged, we're going to do dinner at 7. Let's push the time back. Who think that means 8 p.m.? Half the class would raise their hand. I said, who thinks that means 6 p.m.? The other class would raise their hand. Now, are you talking about back as into going into the future, or are you talking about back coming towards me in time? A misunderstanding. We have to make sure that we are communicating and understanding. When we say that there are 800,000 workers that are furloughed, and the government talks about who is essential versus non-essential. Who's essential versus who's non-essential? It's a function of where you stand. Mr. Trump and his bravado, he told us the Mexicans and the Mexican government will build the wall. Who will pay for the wall? Now there is fibbing, there's storytelling, and then there's just outright, flat out, we're going to say inaccuracies. That would be the polite thing. But so that we can make sure that we're communicating in a manner that 45 appreciates, those are lies. Bald-faced, orange-haired, just lies. You're willing to shut down our $1.3 trillion government affecting 800,000 workers that has to deal with Homeland Security. So what is he really saying in this word, the wall? Is he really just talking about this fence, this border, this concrete? No, there's a deeper issue here that I want to put on your mind. The wall. We've had a war going on for drugs for too long. We need to stop the war. That's code message also in the wall. We're having a slow rate of birth in our nation, where it's currently 67% Caucasian, and there's a growing population of minority and Hispanic and black. He wants to slow down the immigration. That's code message also in the wall. When he says build the wall, he's telling American workers in code, save your jobs because other people are coming over here and taking your jobs. Why do we need a freedom forum? Why do we need to come honor the birth date and the death date of the Honorable Reverend Martin Luther King? Why do we stand here behind my father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who lived and worked and walked with Martin Luther King while he was alive? Not all of these imposters that have something to say about King, that were afraid to be around the man when he lived. When my father goes out down to the Federal Plaza to stand with the federal workers, he truly believes in keeping hope alive. Why does he want to do that? Because our federal workers are being bludgeoned and being pounded. They don't know what else to do. Some people want to be on Facebook posting. That's a good thing. Some people want to be on Snapchat. Some are going home watching Netflix, Amazon Prime with your Fire Stick. But sometimes, in 2019, you've got to show up with your marching feet, pick your head up, show your face. Federal workers should be in plazas all across the nation. I understand better than most. Trust me, I grew up listening to I Am Somebody every day. Even when I felt like I was nobody, I'd wake up in the middle of my sleep knowing that I am somebody. And I said, God, do I have to hear this one more time? But as I got older, thank God for 53, there's something on the inside of me that's been baked down deep into the marrow of my bone. I feel like somebody all day when I don't even think about nobody. If you felt like somebody, you would act like somebody. You would wake up every day and be thankful for everything. You would know you're in the greatest country on earth, and you've got the right to protest for the right. Why don't the federal workers meet us at the Federal Plaza? Stand up, show out, show up. What is the problem? Reverend Martin Luther King died at the age of 39, Reverend Patterson. It took 15 years to get a King holiday. Why? To commemorate a man who died for good. Even as that was going on, some people said, I can't go to work. I'm not going to work. I don't know what I'm going to do. We marched. Stevie Wonder came with a song. Ronald Reagan came with a pen. That date was passed, but yet the markets did not recognize it. It wasn't until 1998 when I was with my father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, and we went to the New York Stock Exchange, talking about the fourth part of the Symphony of Freedom, needing economic justice. We met with Sanford Weill, then the nation's largest banker. Met with Dick Grosso, the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange, and my father asked Dick Grosso and Sanford Weill, why are the markets open on Reverend Martin Luther King's birthday? Mr. Dick Grosso says, you know, we never thought about it. Reverend Jackson, this is a private member organization. Let me poll my members and get back to you. The members of the New York Stock Exchange unanimously agreed the market should be closed for Reverend Martin Luther King's birthday. That was 1998. So then it went from the holiday / holy day that we could commemorate to now some people celebrate the King sale, the King mattress, the King tax reform, the King, taken into a commercial zone where they exploit his memory, where there's nothing holy, nothing set aside in your mind for a man that died for good. Reverend Martin Luther King has now been dead longer than he ever lived. And our children don't know his name. And our parents and grandparents that are still alive have not told them what he's done for you. Why is the government shut down? This is the part of the cynical part of the right-wing strategy to defund, give the taxes back to the rich. and tax the poor. They've gone from King's vision of a war on behalf of poverty to a war on the poor. Thank God for Bank of America and others that are showing corporate leadership, and Whole Food that's offering to give some food away. But more important than giving some charity, join the fight against indignation. You can give somebody a bowl of spaghetti. That's a great thing to do. But what are you having your lobbyists do to the senators? Why don't all the people in the Senate and the Congress give up their paycheck? A government shutdown. Who has entitlements? Those that are the poor and working. Who has benefits? Those that are getting the breaks. Who's on welfare? The people that need cheese and SNAP assistance and the TANF. Who's on subsidies? Those oil companies, those energy companies, those corporations that have money parked over shore that are now repatriating their capital back into opportunity zones where they'll pay no taxes. They pay no taxes leaving, they pay no taxes coming back. Thank God for the Rainbow Push Forum, where we can talk. We don't have to be entertained, we need to be informed. Protecting our children is at stake. Who is this man that's doing this? We saw this with the Central Park Five. 5 African-American boys in Central Park, teenagers, that Trump took out a full-page ad wanting to have them killed. He said they raped a white woman. It has been conclusively found that these children were innocent. They served over 20 years in jail, and the arrogance of this capitulating man, he won't even apologize for asking for the murder of these children. But it doesn't stop there. We're living in a spirit of a time where women and girls are not protected. We saw it 400 years ago with young Phyllis Wheatley, and 400 years later, 1619 to 2019. This is the 400th year after the founding of Jamestown. 400 years after America first had enslaved persons from the African continent. We didn't come over here as slaves. We were God's children that someone had put together a system of enslavement. Don't tell me you're a descendant of a slave. You're God's child, and you got to believe it. Someone else was a beast that was willing to subjugate you to something inhumane. 400 years later, God has been good. 1619 to 2019. What does that have to do with the government shutdown? You can call it non-essential, essential. You can call it furloughed. You can call it having to work without pay. It's the same. You can, what else they call it? They call it chattel slavery. They've got all these terms for working without pay. And I'm here to tell you, 400 years later, working without pay is another function, another derivative of slavery. "400 years later, it's slavery. How do you want people to show up to work and not pay them? 400 years later, how do you start putting the burden on the workers and running up their credit because you've now made their checks bounce? You've now run down their credit scores. You've now made sure they have to choose between heat, food, and medicine. How do you ask somebody to come to work and not pay them? Somebody says, why are you talking about 400 years later? Because this was an original birth defect in America. It's been a blood issue, not just against black, not just against Native American, not just against Hispanics. It's been a war against the poor. Most Caucasians are taking on Medicaid benefits. Now, you can't say I'm a prison guard, I'm out of work, because I'm a federal employee. I wanted to be with Trump to build the wall, but I'm against him taking my check. You can't say I support the man in Washington, but I also want to keep my check. I can't say I support the man in Washington and I want him to drain the swamp, but then you get affected. Pay attention to the 6 and the 9. When he said drain the swamp, he put the swampiest, sleaziest people in there. He wanted to drain you, the federal employees. The rich man wasn't talking to defend you. That is some kind of always interesting when you see some of these athletes on television. And you know, last week they were eating wieners on a piece of crackers. You know, they were also having some bologna sandwiches with no mayo, having cornflakes with water on it. And then as soon as they get a paycheck, they think they're rich. They think that they're friends with the owners. They said, you know, I also understand about the tax breaks and the tax deduction. Let me tell you something with your 2 coins in your pocket. You might have made $1 million, you might have made 2, you ain't rich. You're an employee and you sign the back of the check. The employer signs the front of the check. Don't forget where you've come from. The team owner takes his money out every 2 years. That's capital gains. You take your money out every week when he signs your check. You are an employee. That's ordinary income. You got a great job, but you ain't an owner, you ain't rich, and on the day you leave that team, the team owns your number. You are, 400 years later, a slave. Mr. Sam Poland owned the Washington Wizards when they changed the name from the Washington Bullets to the Wizard. He had asked Michael Jordan to come over there to sign a 3-year term to be an owner/manager player. Mr. Sam Poland, about 4'11", called Michael Jordan into his office and called Peter Falk, his manager, in and said to him, Michael, I want to thank you for your services, but I no longer need you. Your $10 million check is downstairs. Michael Jordan, in the book, $40 Million Slave, asked Peter Falk, his manager, what happened? Am I getting fired? Mr. Falk says, I don't know. Ask Mr. Poland. Michael looked down on Poland and says, I thought when you died, I was going to be the owner of the team, and I was a part. Mr. Poland looked up at Michael and said, Michael, I've owned this team before you were born. Michael, I don't need any partners. Have a great day. Michael says, he says, your check is downstairs. Michael said, I don't need that check. He says, and I don't owe you an explanation. It's in the book, $40 Million Slave. Read. In the Civil War, when it was finishing, John Wilkes Booth was a famous actor. When they decided to make a plot, and the first woman in American history had gotten assassinated, had gotten put to death by death penalty for being a part of the plot to kill Abraham Lincoln. What was it about? It was about decapitation of a government. How did Hitler rise to power? It was the SS in the middle of the night. They killed out the top leadership of the opposition party. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited 400 years later. I'm excited about 2019. I'm excited that those that love freedom still keep showing up. I'm not afraid of 45. After 45, there's going to be a 46, 7, 8. We've got to keep fighting for what's right. In the new millennium, the new century, the new 1,000 years, we started leaving the end of the last century with Jack Johnson, a bald-head black man that had superpower as the heavyweight champion of the world, being indicted and convicted and put all sort of erroneous laws against him. In the new millennium, we started off with one of our greatest athletes, Michael Jordan, a tall, handsome, bald-headed, wealthy black athlete being fired. Where am I going with this? Aviation employees, you're next. Teachers union, you're next. Then they go into our schools and say, gymnasium teachers and athletic directors are non-essential. Then they tell our children after traumatizing events of school shootings that these social workers are non-essential. Then they go back and tell our math teachers, you're non-essential. Let's give the children a pad, give them a notepad. We don't have to talk to them. They can just stay at home and go to school. They keep telling us one by one we're non-essential. Ladies and gentlemen, put down that phone, put down that pad, show up one of these federal plazas, stand up. We can turn around the shutdown. It's been 400 years. If you're alive today and you've never been in a demonstration, you didn't stand up for Trayvon Martin, you didn't stand up for Laquan McDonald, you didn't stand up for the federal workers, you didn't stand up for the victims of John Burge's torture right here in the city of Chicago. You didn't stand up when they went down to put the children in detention centers in Texas. When are you going to stand up? And what are you going to stand up for? I just want the few and the strong and the brave to show up, because 2019 is going to be some direct action. You've got the power in your hand. Don't you ever let anybody tell you that you're non-essential, that you are an illegal alien, that you are beyond the statutes of limitation for justice, that you see our children being kidnapped out in California, a girl that was stuck up in the mountains, children being kidnapped and held hostage right here in the city of Chicago. When are you going to stand up? God bless you.
Hi, I'm Todd Yeary here outside Dr. King's workshop, the Rainbow Push headquarters, where people of goodwill from all walks and all places gather as comrades in the movement for justice and equality. Social justice movements have been birthed in the imaginations of people in places just like this. You can be a part of this justice movement too. Join Rainbow Push as we fight for justice in the 21st century. Go to rainbowpush.org or dial 773-FREEDOM, and remember, keep hope alive.
Journey with us. We are returning home to South Africa in celebration of freedom and the end of apartheid. Register now to travel with Miss Jacqueline Jackson to South Africa, April 24th, 2019 through May 4th, 2019.
Join us Monday, January 21st, 2019 for the 29th annual Push Excel Dr. Martin Luther King Scholarship Breakfast at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Chicago. We honor and celebrate the birthday and holiday of the nation's friend of mankind, Dr. Martin Luther King, with this year's theme, Sketches of a New Legacy, while showcasing our programmatic efforts of educational excellence and equity, while highlighting the accomplishments of our best and brightest. And this year's honorees including corporate trailblazer Lori George Billingsley, Howard University professor Dr. Ivory Tolson, and president of the statewide Illinois Association of Superintendents and Administrators, Dr. Sheila Harrison Williams. Reserve your tickets and tables. Go to Eventbrite at rainbowpush.org. The 29th annual Push Excel Scholarship Breakfast is the place to be as we continue to push for excellence.
Get involved with the movement.
Somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Join the movement.
If you're not a member, become a member.
I am somebody.
Fighting the most important battles for freedom and justice for all.
You made us change. Oh, trying to bring closer.
Join Rainbow Push.
But you're not pushing me away.
Join the movement. Join Rainbow Push.
have to want to support. The issues all over the world, and for him to be invited to Stockholm, Sweden, where Dr. King received the Nobel Peace Prize, it's a tremendous honor of a person that many of us take for granted. And so I want you to give, and while he is here, support what he is doing now, while he is with us and still working for us. And so I want each of you to reach in your pockets, think about 10 people that didn't come today that you want to give for them. Come on, Reverend Rodney Patterson, Pastor Shiloh will come and take the offering.
She called the preacher to get some money.